What's up, you guys? Today I'm gonna be reacting to my coming out video because it's been a year since I posted it, a little over a year, and I really haven't watched it since I did watch it once in October of last year when it started getting more traction. Because I was like, I better make sure that there's nothing I don't want the world to see that's in that video. I think it's at around like 315,000 views. So I mean, I haven't seen it in like at least 10 or 9 months. And so I thought it might be interesting if I rewatched it again and talked about what's happened since then and what that video has kind of done. Because that video has like changed my life in many ways. So yeah, let's get started.
This video is going to be a little different. I wanted to talk about...
I don't know why I started with that. Like, this video is going to be really unique.
Growing up Mormon and also growing up gay. I went to church every week. I was an Eagle Scout. I went on a mission for 2 years to Alaska.
A lot of people commented about my eyes in this video. It was just because there is a ring light that I use for like a lot of my videos, and it was dark, so my eyes don't normally look that cool.
The plan was always to stay in the church, and so I didn't feel like I ever really needed to come out to anyone because it wasn't going to be a part of my life. I just kind of struggled with it internally. When I decided to go on a mission, I made a deal with God where I said, if I am 100% obedient and do my very best, then I'll be straight when I come back. When that didn't happen, I decided that I just hadn't found the right girl, and so I dated lots of girls. I thought, as long as I date a girl long enough for her to learn to love me, then it wouldn't matter when I told her I was gay. That was the strategy, at least. I felt guilty dating them because I felt like they deserved somebody who could love them in every way that they deserved, and I felt like I wasn't going to be able to do that.
It is true. There was like a lot of hardship that led to me coming out and accepting my sexuality. But one of my biggest regrets from this video is just how this video is very doom and gloom in a lot of, not at the end as much, but like during a lot of the video. It's very sad because it's kind of the hardships that I went through to get to where I felt the need to come out. But at the same time, like, so many good experiences happened. Like, so much good came from me coming out, both mentally and emotionally for me, and just my relationships with close friends and family. I just wish I would have highlighted a little bit more on the positives in the video than just all of the hardship, I guess.
After dating someone and me starting to really care about them, I would break up with them knowing that it was their best interest. I did this for 3 years after the mission, of just trying to make it work and then finding out that it wasn't going to work and just starting this cycle over and over and over. After my mission, I told a bishop. He was the first person I ever came out to. He was actually awesome. So he has a gay son. He talked about how him and his wife eventually learned to accept not this gay son's lifestyle, but him as a person, and also the person he was dating, who he's now engaged to. It was a struggle and still is a struggle for him and his wife, but he talked about how the whole family still loves him just the same, and they know that the person he's dating deserves love and respect. I talked to him about it enough that he told me, this is a big enough deal that you should share this with your parents. They deserve to know so they can help you. I did not want to do that. I told him that I really didn't want to, but if you thought it was that important, then I would. One day after a family dinner.
I still have a lot of love and respect for that bishop. Of like the Mormon bishops in the world, I got really lucky as far as who I talked to and first came out to. Just the chances of him having children that were LGBTQ, and just that he was coming from a place of personal understanding was huge. The chances of that were not high.
All of my family had just left, and all the nephews and nieces, and I went down to my room kind of wondering about my future and my family, and if I would ever have something like them. And my dad came down, and he could tell something was going on, so he asked me if I was okay, and I just told him, "Dad, I'm gay." But then I quickly assured him I'm still like active in the church and I plan to stay that way, which was absolutely my plan at the time. The fact that I told him that I was still like gonna stay in the church made it okay. Well, I told my dad that I wasn't ready to talk to my mom yet, and so my dad told me that he would keep it a secret for me. I was still seeing my bishop regularly about this, and he told me that it would be really hard for him to keep it a secret from his wife. And he was like, "I can't imagine what it must be like for your dad." And I knew he was right, and so I talked to my dad, and my dad had been itching to tell my mom too. And so we picked a day just to sit her down and we'd both tell her everything. That's what we did. I told her and quickly reassured her that the plan was just to stay in the church and to do my best. Whether that meant marrying someone, which at the time we were saying that we hoped I was going to be able to meet a girl I could be attracted to, but we all agreed that it would be best for me to be honest before marriage, that this was something that was a part of me. I continued to date girls.
I've had so many people on Instagram messaging me. I just didn't fully grasp how many people really struggle with this, and that's why I feel like it needs to be talked about more. Both if churches want to keep LGBTQ members and if society wants to like provide an environment where LGBTQ people can thrive.
I could kind of vent to them when I was dating somebody and I was worried it wasn't going to work. I don't see when I'm going to be able to tell her, and I don't know how this is going to work. Eventually I found a girl that I thought it might work with, and so I pursued it with everything. We had only been going on dates. We were going on dates like multiple times a week for like 2 months. And then eventually she kind of drifted away, and I could tell that there was a disinterest there, and so I backed off. That one was really hard for me because I felt like that was my opportunity from God to marry a girl and to have kids and to live a life like the rest of my family. I went on a little trip with some friends to San Francisco. On this trip to San Francisco, I decided I would download Tinder. And I wasn't actually going to meet up with anyone. I was just going to message people and see what that was like.
I've hung out with one of the people that I went on that San Francisco trip with, and he was talking about how him and the other guy that came on the trip watched my coming out video together, and they just laughed. That's one of my first videos, is that trip. I asked my friends to record me at different times, and I realized on my phone, like, messages were popping up from guys on Tinder, and I didn't think it through, but I guess they didn't notice when they were recording, so that was lucky.
Thrilling that people really liked me. It came so much more naturally than when I was trying to date girls. There were people who were really interested, and I was really interested in them, and it was sad because I knew I wasn't going to be in San Francisco in a week. But it totally changed my perspective. I came back, I started dating guys, and it was such an amazing experience, and I met so many awesome people that I'm good friends with now. I was still living at home, and I knew that I was going to have to talk to my parents about how I was dating guys, but I wanted to somehow ease them into the idea of it. I didn't know how I was going to do that and what the best way was, but I was just going to take my time, try to brainstorm, and come up with the best possible solution. So that's what I shot for. And I met this guy who I really liked, and I wanted to start dating him. And so I started breaking off things with other guys that I had been going on dates with. One of the people that I tried to break things off with made it very difficult. So after I tried to break...
That was an understatement, for sure. This guy, I do not go in depth in this story as to how crazy that whole experience was. And I think at the time I was still a little nervous that he might get mad or like find my videos, but it's been so long, and like I've moved out of state, and like, yeah, not really worried about it as much now, but there was a lot that went into that. Like, I ended up calling the police like 4 different times. He had like showed up to people's houses that I'd gone on dates with a gun. I was at a party once where he slashed like one tire from everyone that was parked in front of my friend's house, and then all of my tires. And then there was another time where he keyed my car. There was another time where he like bashed the door in on my car. Like really crazy stuff, honestly. I had to get like it wasn't a restraining order. It was a like property injunction. Like he couldn't set foot on my parents' property. Otherwise we could call the police and he would be breaking the law. Anyways, it was absolutely nuts.
I was coming back from a game night at like 2 o'clock in the morning. He was parked outside of my house, my parents' house, where I was living. I had never told him where I lived. Anytime we had met up, we had been meeting somewhere very public. So it scared me. When he got out of his car, I was like, hey, like, how's it going? And like, how do you know where I live? His response was, it's easy to find anyone in Mormontown. Whatever that means. And he asked me if we could go on one last date as friends. And I was like, okay. I agreed because I wanted to end things on good terms, especially since he knew where I lived and he knew that my parents didn't know I was dating guys. So he kind of had that leverage. On this one last date, we went on a drive to some lake.
Agreeing to go on that date could have been really bad. He already knew I was trying to break things off, and I didn't realize how violent he would become later. It was not a good idea. Luckily I did like text some friends. I was texting them that I was going on a date with this person. Yeah, it was just a little scary and sketchy because he was like surprising me where we were going. Like he didn't even tell me where we were going. It was just a bad situation. And it was not good judgment on my part.
The whole way there, I was like very cordial. But he was talking about how like why we were gonna work and that we need to keep dating. On the road drive back, I was just like, listen man, this is why it's not gonna work, and I really need to end things. At the end of the night, it never died down. Eventually I just got out of his car and I was like, I'm not gonna argue anymore, and I just left. And then I sent him a text that he was starting to scare me and that we just needed to stay friends. He was like, okay, we'll just be friends. And I was like, okay, just give me like a week before we like hang out or do anything. And so a week went by, and then he started sending me a bunch of texts, a bunch of Snapchats, and he was like, hey, you said we were gonna be friends in a week. I was on a date at the time with the guy that I was hoping to start a relationship with, so I wasn't responding to any of his texts right away. And eventually I get a text from him that just says, hey, I just met your family, your mom and your dad and your sister. And I was like, no. I immediately left the date with the guy that I was on and started driving home to try to assess whatever damage he had done. And so when I got home, I found out he hadn't actually like told anybody that I was dating, but they were like, who's this guy that was asking for you? I found out that he was on his way back to my house, and I knew that I couldn't let him have that kind of leverage on me or in my life. And so I knew I had to tell my parents. And so
the hardest part in all of this was that my parents were having to deal with the fact that I was gay. At the same time, they were having to deal with this crazy person. He had just gone to the guy's house that I was just on a date with, and he had like showed up with a gun. Like I was telling you guys earlier, this guy was nuts. And then I found out he was coming back to my parents' house. So I like realized that like for the safety of my parents and my family, I needed to tell them what was happening. It was like the hardest way that they could like possibly find out. So my poor parents went through a ton.
I was actually not at my house at the time, and I called my dad, just sobbing my eyes out. Told him that I had started dating guys, and
something else that's kind of funny about this video is I can tell that like my editing style has changed a ton. So in this video, I feel like there's so many huge spaces in between my words and whatnot, which now in my videos I cut them up so that you guys just hear like when I'm talking. But in this one, there's so many awkward pauses.
That was definitely the most like difficult phone call I've ever made. After this whole experience, I had a talk with my parents, and I decided with them to try to date girls again. I attempted to start dating a girl, and I started to really care about her.
That whole experience was like, with that one guy was so bad that I literally started dating girls again. Even though it was as bad as it was, it also led to so many good things. Like the fact that I was able to come out to my parents then made it so that I could be where I am today, where I'm comfortable and happy with my family and with my situation in life. And even on the days that feel like the worst, sometimes, I don't know, there's good things to come, I guess.
I broke things off again, but this time I told her why. And she was the sweetest ever. After I started trying to date girls and breaking things off again with another girl, I knew that I couldn't go back to dating girls. It was gonna be guys from here on out. One of the reasons that I started this channel is because me coming to terms with myself started through YouTube. I found different people coming out, and that there was a happy life after coming out, and that they had people who loved and accepted them, knowing them completely. You would think it would be obvious in today's world where it's more widely accepted, but I feel like for most people, and myself included, you feel like you're gonna be the exception. I feel like I got even more love from people after coming out to them, and like 90% of the people in my circle are very religious.
Two of like the biggest groups that disagree are the LGBTQ community and the religious community. A lot of LGBTQ people feel like religious people look down on them and don't accept them, and I realize that there are totally religions that almost promote like persecuting homosexuals. But I feel like for the most part, we'd be surprised by how accepting people are. This is something that blew me away when I came out, was just how my really, really religious family and friends like loved me. You know, they wanted the best for me, and some of them disagreed with that my choices are what were going to make me happiest, but they loved me and they supported me in my decisions, even though it's not what they wanted for me. And that's like the beauty of love, is like you can get support from people even when they don't agree with you. But that's also a two-way street. LGBTQ people, I feel like oftentimes aren't loving and accepting of religious people. The goal of me having this channel, probably the biggest one, is to like build bridges of understanding for people that disagree. Imagine how much better the world would be if people that didn't necessarily agree with each other could still be friends, and just acknowledge the fact that yes, they disagree, but that doesn't mean they can't get along.
Was worried that my family was gonna hate me when I came out. I had one family member that I remember talked about how he always viewed being gay about the same as being a pedophile. And hearing things like that affects you as a kid.
Most of my family, as a result of me coming out, I've become way closer to. I would hear homophobic comments sometimes, like not very often from family, but every once in a while you would hear something. And coming out is kind of a unique opportunity for you to kind of broaden people's perspectives and kind of change their view of like even a whole group of people. And I love that. I love that my close friends and family don't view the LGBT community the same. It's kind of been forever changed now that they know somebody personally who's in it.
This day, this family member has been so loving and supportive about me coming out. So my parents' reaction was definitely to tighten the reins, because I know that they were doing it out of love and they wanted what was best for me, which makes it hard to be mad at them for even if they at times reacted like not the way I wanted them to. But now my relationship with my parents is really good. They've even met people I've dated.
Since this video is uploaded, like they had just met Hayden once, and now they love Hayden. And they tell him that when we leave. It's kind of remarkable what can happen in a year.
Although they don't agree with my lifestyle necessarily.
This this moment in the video is where I got the most pushback, and it was for a good reason. I used the word lifestyle, which is definitely a part of my growing up. Like that definitely played a part in me like using that phrase, because being gay is just as much a lifestyle as being straight. Like it's not a lifestyle. You don't choose to be gay. So I do apologize for using that, because it wasn't a good term to use, and it doesn't work. And I do appreciate you guys pointing that out.
They love me and I love them, and that won't ever change.
This part of the video, I gave no context. I just threw it in at the end of the video. And I realized people that weren't raised Mormon wouldn't understand what's happening. This is a clip of me coming back from my mission. And to give you a little context, you don't see your family for 2 years when you serve a Mormon mission. And you can't even call your family. The only communication you have is over email. So it's a big deal when you get to see each other again. And the whole idea of the clip was to show the love that my family has for me and that I have for my family. It like still makes me emotional when I watch that clip every time. Just my mom's reaction of like just crying and shaking in excitement gets me every time. But one comment that popped up a lot was people kind of giving my parents a hard time about the way they reacted, which I feel like anybody that said something like that didn't understand the point of the entire video, because the whole video was meant to show like not only me coming to terms with the fact that I was gay, but also my parents and the fact that they still loved me. Even though we had like community influences and religious influences and societal influences, they loved me regardless. And I feel like that clip is just a good example of the fact that we're going to love each other regardless of what comes our way. So that's why I added it. So many positive changes have happened in my life since that video was posted and since I decided to come out. And I'm just so grateful that I get to live an authentic life. And I know that has been able to have positive impacts on other people's lives. I've gotten literally thousands of messages from people through social media, mostly Instagram, just talking about how they struggle with similar things. When I was growing up Mormon, I knew that I wasn't the only one, but that's how it felt. And I was blown away by how many people that are Mormon are also gay, or just even religious people in general that messaged me that struggled with this and coming to terms with themselves and worried about how people were going to react, or were worried about their relationship with God. And it's just such a prevalent issue that I feel like needs to be talked about so much more, because there's so many more people that can't be vocal about it. When I'm in a place where I feel like I can be, I want to. I feel like the more that we talk about it, the more it's going to be addressed. Thank you guys so much for watching and for being with me through this whole year. I've loved meeting some of you guys and talking with you guys over Instagram, and I'm excited to keep doing that. But yeah, I'm sure I'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.